Hello, welcome to Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura. Thank you for joining me here today. If you are not subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe. I do book content, but my main thing is book versus movie comparison. So if that interests you, you should subscribe. This, however, is not a book versus movie comparison. This is just about books. The last few months, there have been 4 different, very unique books that I have read that all have very different plots, and yet they have each reminded me of each other in a way. And so I wanted to talk about this type of book, and I'll start out talking about what they all have in common and why I like them just generally. And then I will do brief spoiler-free reviews for each of the 4 books. And if what I say about these books makes you think of another book that is similar, comment down below, because I have been loving these types of books. And if you have ideas of another one that is similar along these lines, I want to read it. Also, each of these books I discovered through a different YouTuber, so I will also mention them when I talk about the book that they led me to. But what I like about each of these books is that they are all bizarre, thought-provoking, and deep books that just have stuck with me after I finished reading them. And I've read each of them once, but all 4 of them are ones where I'm like, man, like I need to give that a second read. And I plan on reading all of them a second time. And they're also the type of book where, like, as you're reading it, you have moments where you're just like, what in the world am I reading right now? Like, this is so weird. Like, what is going on? What does this all mean? And while they are a slow burn, I have a hard time putting them down because I am trying to make sense of it all. And it's just these weird events and weird things happening that don't make sense, and you're trying to piece it together, and it slowly is revealed what it all means. So again, it's a slow burn, but they're ones I have a hard time putting down because I just need to figure out what is going on. And all of them are also written by female authors, which I love. And some of them deal with like femininity, feminism to some extent. I mean, we do have one in particular that definitely focuses on womanhood in particular and motherhood, and that is one reason why I loved it. But I do think that the female author aspect does add something to it, you know, because women and men do have a different way of writing. That is another thing that I like about them. And then also all 4 of them sort of have horror elements to it. There is one that's more supernatural than it is horror, and only one of them made me scared at night at one point. So even the other 2, they have elements of horror, but they're not straight up scary. So it's kind of like a lot of scary movie these days where they're not just a scary movie, they're exploring a deeper level of our sociology and psychological whatever things going on. And so I like that too, where it's not a surface level story and it's very deep and thought-provoking, and they all have various layers to them. And each one goes in a direction that I had not anticipated. And sometimes I try to predict what's going to happen in a book, but I also am just trying to enjoy it and just enjoy it for while I'm reading it and not try to make all these predictions as I'm reading. But nonetheless, they all went in directions I hadn't anticipated and was not able to predict. So I like that as well. But to talk about each book specifically, so I'm going to start with the one I read first. I will put it up here. So Bunny by Mona Awad I found through Katie Coulson's YouTube channel. She famously loves this book. It is one of her favorites. And I would love her to make a video where she talks in detail why she loves this book and how she interprets it, because this is one that can definitely be interpreted different ways. And I did look up different ideas that people had online after I finished it, and there was one Reddit thread, and I believe it's the Reddit thread that Katie Coulson referenced that has this new way of looking at it. But yeah, when she talks about it, she always keeps it spoiler free as far as I've seen in her videos, so I'd love her to do an in-depth how she interprets it and why she loves it. I would give this one a 3.5, which is the lowest rated of the 4 books, but it is about a grad student who falls in with this clique of Barbie type women, and they all call each other Bunny. And so she attends the private get-togethers that they have, and as she learns about what goes on in this clique, she also learns things about herself. And I guarantee, as you're reading this book, you will have the hardest time not calling everybody around you Bunny, because the women in this clique, they all call each other Bunny. And so you're constantly reading that. Even on the cover, it has Margaret Atwood being like, oh, Bunny, you're so smart. Because yeah, it's just so hard not to call everyone around you Bunny as you are reading this book. But yeah, this one is definitely weird and trippy. And again, it has some horror elements. It has some animal violence as well, which honestly yeah, it's upsetting, specifically in a movie when an animal is hurt, but I feel like people make such a big deal of that. I don't know, don't think I'm heartless, but animal violence in books doesn't really bother me. I have pets though, and I love them dearly, so it's not like I'm a heartless person who hates animals. I don't want you thinking that. But anyway, so this one, like I said, is my lowest rated of the 4, but it was very thought-provoking. It sticks with you. You try to make sense of it. And I think this one out of all 4 is the most interpretive, and you can decide what you think it means to you. And yeah, I've heard a lot of people have different ideas on it. The next book, Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. This one is like not horror, but it is supernatural because it is about a woman who has a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old son, and she is struggling. Like, she loves being a mom, but she's also struggling with motherhood. While she's struggling with this, she begins to turn into a wolf. And so this one, I like this one because this one is definitely just about womanhood and motherhood. And even though it is bizarre and there's times where you're just like, what is going on right now? Ultimately, I left this book just feeling so empowered as a woman and like embracing my womanhood, which I know that probably sounds so cheesy, but it was just a very powerful book. And I'm not a mother. I think if you're a mom, you would be able to appreciate this on a whole nother level, especially if you're a mom who balances work and motherhood. But yeah, even though I'm not a mom, I still loved this book so much, 5 stars. And I first heard about this book from Noelle Gallagher, who is very famous on BookTube. And then I also heard it talked about on Books with Brittany YouTube channel, but when Books with Brittany talked about it, at that point I had already read it. So my first time hearing about it, it was Noelle Gallagher. But yeah, I love this one. Like I said, it's not scary at all, but it is weird. The ending is one that, again, I think can kind of be interpreted in different ways, and it's definitely one that makes you think. It took me a while to like try to make sense of the ending entirely, and again, all of these I want to read a second time, and I think when I read this one a second time, I will be able to make sense of the ending even more and be able to appreciate it even more. Also, this is my favorite cover. Like, it's so simple, yet it's so striking, and I love it. Then we have A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This one I heard first through Jordaline. I think her YouTube channel is just her name, but Jordaline Reads or something. Anyway, she like briefly mentioned this one, and then I looked it up on Goodreads, and based on the reviews, I was like, I want to read this. And so it is about a couple who is like obsessed with this other woman on Instagram. And that's all I really want to say. That's all I knew going into it, along with the fact that everybody is like, the ending is insane and it's so wild. And so that's all I knew going into this book. And so there was a lot of things that are revealed. Even if it's revealed early on, it was something I hadn't known, and I like going into books that way. So that is all I am going to tell you about this book. But it is a commentary, of course, on social media because it deals with Instagram and all of that. So I found that really interesting, but then it's also commenting on the self-help culture. I mean, I like self-help books, but there are certain types of self-help books that are just, I don't know, like my husband calls it like Space Cadet, when they're just like really weird and out there. And so yeah, so as someone who reads self-help, I did enjoy the commentary on self-help. And it also has a lot of humor in it as well. Like Bunny had some humor too, and maybe even Nightbitch, but this one definitely had some funny moments, some weird moments. It had things that I did not expect. And then the end particularly is when it kind of takes a horror turn. But yeah, this one was a great one. I probably will be rereading this one sooner than the others because there's just so much to chew on in this book. I would give it a 4 or 4.5 stars, but after I give it a reread, maybe I would bump it up to even higher after reading it a second time around and being able to appreciate it all the more. But yeah, this one is definitely one I would recommend. Last but not least, we have The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. I think is how you say her name. This one I finished like yesterday, so very recently. And I heard about this one through the channel Possessed by Horror, which is a YouTuber named Sarah. And she primarily talks about movies. However, every like couple months, every few months, she does a book video. And this one she talked about on her most recent video. And she didn't get into details because she was like, it's best to go into this book knowing basically nothing. But based on what she did say, I literally paused the video right after she talked about it. I didn't even finish watching the video until later. But right then I paused the video, I went and looked up the book, got it, read it in 2 days. Also, by the way, like I have a very low threshold when it comes to horror, especially in movies, but also in books. And yet I still love watching her YouTube channel. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because she's just, something about her, she's just very engaging to watch. Anyway, so she talked about this book and I loved it. It's definitely one where as you're reading it, there's things that just don't line up. Like it's inconsistent to some degree, like in these minor ways. But then the more you read, the more everything clicks into place. And by the time you're done, It all makes so much sense, and it's just so well executed, and it deals with a trope that has been done before, and it's usually done very poorly, but she writes it so well, which again, to talk about specifically the element I'm talking about is a spoiler, so I can't talk about it, but the way she writes about this thing is so well done. And again, definitely read the afterword, which I know some people I saw on Goodreads, like they listened to the audiobook or something, so they didn't have the afterword, but I loved it even without the afterword, and then the afterword made me appreciate it all the more. And this book goes in so many directions I had not expected. And again, there's so many moments where you're just like, what? Like, what is going on right now? This is so weird. What is happening? I need to figure out what this all means. And it also has shifting perspectives, which I think this is the only one that does, because Bunny is just from one perspective. A Touch of Jen, I think that also is just from one perspective. Yeah, so this is the only one that has shifting perspectives, so each chapter is from a different character. Like, I feel like I read books like that faster sometimes. However, you know, I also love books that are told only from one perspective. This one does tackle some tough subjects, including child abuse, which I know I was talking about like animal violence earlier, which is upsetting, but child abuse is just so tough to read about. I mean, I love this book. It's 5 stars, so I would still recommend it. However, if that is something that, I mean, I find it difficult to read, but if you're someone who just like really can't read stuff like that, then probably should skip this one, if I'm being honest. Like I said, this book, 5 stars, so well written. It's put together, like so detailed. I really loved it. It was the scariest of the 4, I will say, so also be warned about that as well. And that wraps it up on the 4 books that I have read lately that I really like, that all have very different plots, and yet they're all similar in some ways, and they all have a certain element. There's something to all of them that make me think of another one. And I would have to get more into spoilers to get more specific as to why they remind me of each other. But like I said, all of them are just like weird, thought-provoking, deep, bizarre, kind of upsetting at times with some of them. But anyway, I recommend all of them. So if you think you would like them, definitely check them out. Let me know if you've read any of these down in the comments and if any of them have piqued your interest. And if what I've said about these books has reminded you of another book, like I said, I would love to get recommendations. I mean, it doesn't have to be a female author, because I have my Jeff Vandermeer collection, and a lot of people have recommended China Melville. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. So I do love like the weird books, but these ones just all happen to be written by female authors, which I really love. So comment male authors as well, but if you have a female author who has a book like these, I would love it. And I know Catriona Awad has other books, and then Mona Awad has all as well, so I do plan on reading those at some point. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Instagram, Goodreads, all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye.